Hello there. I'd like to welcome you to the very technologically advanced podcast on a cultural shift. Someday I'll get better. I'll get some intro music and maybe another voice can introduce me. But until that time, welcome, welcome. I just wanted to stop for a second today. There was a post that I wrote last week. I think it was on the 31st of May. I'll try to remember to put the link to that in the description of this podcast called "Look at the Stars." And I, it's a subject that's real near and dear to my heart because in that post I talk about vision. I talk about what has God spoken to you, to me. And it's hard to remember sometimes what God has said because life starts lifing and it lifes really heavily from time to time. I've gone through times in my life when I've tried to consider the stars, but there's been clouds covering them, so I couldn't really see them. Oh, I'd see them on clear nights, but when the clouds roll in and darkness comes, those bright lights get clouded and covered. Let me try to explain. When I was really young, maybe 11 or 12, I had the best thing that I can describe it as is a vision of the continent of Africa. And the continent was covered with lines of light crisscrossing and meeting one another within the continent. And I knew coming out from that vision as a youngster that somehow I would be involved in Africa, and here I am. It's almost 40 years later, been a missionary here all that time. And I know the lights are still there. The lights are still darting to and fro in the continent, but sometimes the clouds, even now, still blur my vision. Think about Abraham. You know, we talk about him a lot in the Christian world today, the church world. He's what we call the father of faith. But let me make it real to you today. If you haven't thought about it, Abraham was a person full of flaws, just like the rest of us. I mean, he lied about his wife. People justify it saying it was a half-truth, but anything that's not a full truth is a lie. He lied about his wife twice to tell other people that she was his sister so that he wouldn't get killed. I thought that was pretty low. And then another time, he had been promised a son, but his wife offered him her handmaid to have a son by, and he accepted. We don't read anywhere in scripture where he says, no, you don't have to do that. He accepted that. He wasn't a perfect person, but he was the father of our faith, or is the father of faith. And God had promised him first in Genesis 15, and then later on in Genesis 17 and 18, that his descendants would outnumber the stars in the sky. And during the years that he waited 25 years for that promise to be fulfilled. He wavered. He fell down. But he must have had questions. If you read between the lines, he must have had questions. And I bet Abraham from time to time would have to go out and look at the stars and remember the promise of God. Myself, I've had to go out and look at the stars from time to time and remember what God has said to me about the continent of Africa, about other things that I'm doing for him and trusting him for. And I just have to go out and look at the stars because I am imperfect. I've made lots of mistakes. I've done awful mistakes along the way in these many years, but I got to go out and look at the stars. And when they're covered by clouds, it's hard to see them, but they're not always cloudy. The skies aren't always cloudy. And I want to encourage you, if life has been lifing with you today, and I know it has because all of us, we spend time lifing. There's no other way to put it. Life just lifes. And you're struggling to see the stars. I want to encourage you, go out and look at the stars. Remember what God has spoken to you. The stars, they sure are beautiful tonight. Why don't you go take a look?